Yeah, I know. I didn't even talk about going down here, but I had some light on these rocks earlier and I thought, well, that's another kind of a light spot, towards the bottom. I like the design, but I think I like this better. In general, it still, again, services the painting as a whole much better. So, I kept these colors going, moved a little more to the right. That helps to pop this forward. We'll see if that works well or not. Not going to worry about it. This bush as well, I've lightened it. It was a very dark line that was so much, we have this line, this line, this line, and this line. They're very strong, and this was very dark. So I decided to take some of the light that was here away because, okay, at first this was light here, and then it was repeating this square. So it's like I'm kind of micromanaging, but you do have to micromanage to some degree, small areas, for the good of the whole, right? As we know, the sum of its parts is greater, or rather, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So that's kind of what we're playing at. I think this has improved quite a bit. I may still bring a little bit of light here, so it's less like this and more like this. But I don't know. It may not need it. I'm really not sure. Okay, playing there. I'm just going to keep fiddling on this guy, or fiddling on the painting. So there's not much I can say about what I've been doing here, except that at the moment I'm just brimming with self-confidence. What I had going on here was a bit of an abruptness in this area, because this was quite vertical, this dark line. And then I changed it a little bit, and then I had a bar of yellow and a bar of green and a bar of purple and a bar of, you know what I mean? It just like an ice cream sandwich, and it wasn't working for me. Now we've rolled it down a little bit more. I've laid a little more highlight. It's more of a gentle, gradual process going down into this area, but still not attracting too much attention to itself. So I'm really, really getting carried away with this. But I almost feel like I'm working on a superbly washed in canvas. And it's like a playground. All the little things you can play with are so much fun. And so dangerous at the same time because it's so easy to ruin the final view. We'll see. So far so good. I'm not seeing it through the camera very much, but what I am doing is I played on this side of the cloud a little bit as promised, and I tried introducing a couple of small shapes that would be pushed into the distance, but that would help to break up this area of blue, of very strong blue. That was a bunch of playing around. Now what I'm just going to do is I'm starting to feel as though these blues are just a little too strong. Here it's definitely too strong. Here it could potentially work. Again, with the theme of trying to pull our attention to the right hand side of the painting. I think I may have mentioned already, but I've as you can see, I've put more light in here. I cut this cloud across the bottom to make it appear as though it's behind this one, and then started to bring some light up here, even further to the right. Just gentle and soft. All again in the interests of pulling our attention a little bit to the right. But now what I've done, I decided I'm just going to knock down the chroma. A little higher value is okay, but I'm not going very high in value as you can see. I'm just working on taking the chroma down in this area, and I'm using ultramarine blue, varying degrees of cobalt blue, a little bit of raw umber, and I've used a hint of yellow ochre to begin with down here. That's disappeared. Now I'm just using the umber because raw umber will knock, it'll knock the chroma down of these higher values. Or, sorry, it'll knock the chroma down of these more intense colors. Take it down, it'll take the key down a little bit. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Now I have sort of a hump here. This was very low doing this. I think what I'm going to do is we have this column in the center. I'm going to look at this as a semicircle, as an arc. Slowly going to go lower in value as we get to the corner. And also, on this side, we'll do the same. I'll probably take some of this higher value and bring it up higher, and leave the darker and the darker colors, darker and higher chroma, a little bit to the right. No, not higher chroma. This is really the higher chroma for the blue. But just sort of end up with vaguely, the lighter going this way, the darker going that way. But being careful not to bring the chroma up too high. So we'll just play with that, see how it goes. I think so far so good. As I get towards the top here, I'm just going to use, okay, that's too much raw umber obviously. I'm going to scrap the cobalt blue. Now I'm just going to go to ultramarine blue. Canvas is a little slack in this corner, as you can see. That's okay. Put a wedge or two in the stretcher frame, and that'll take care of that. Okay, that might be all in all a little dark, but not too worried about it. Notice I'm not doing this. I'm keeping the direction of the strokes. I'm laying paint on, lifting, laying paint off, lifting, or laying paint on, lifting. If I scrub back and forth, this little brush that's in good shape, it will completely lose that by the time this little bit of sky is done. I'm bending the bristles mostly in one direction, or well, pretty much entirely in one direction. A little more linseed oil, keeping that fat over lean in mind. Always important when you work on something that has already been painted. And I think by doing this, I think the issue will be solved. I'm very sure actually that this will do the job. Take the lead out of that chroma. I'm speaking metaphorically, of course. They don't put lead in this paint anymore. Well, there used to be an oil paint called lead white. Maybe there still is. I'm not aware of it. Not on the common market anyway. That indeed was made with lead oxide. Now we have our whites they use zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. Actually, it might be zinc dioxide too. I'm not sure, but. You know how when aluminum corrodes, you get this whitish powder? Well, that goes for magnesium, it goes for zinc, it goes for titanium. And it's that white powder that is the base for a pigment for the paint. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of umbery there. Okay, we're going to do something along the lines of that. Above it will be a little darker. Below it, well, gradually, we're going to go from this to darker. Okay? So just talking about this area specifically, I'm finding it a little bit difficult to accept this area right here. I think I need to make it more clear what is laying under and what is laying over. So I'm going to clarify this a little bit, and then I believe we are facing a finished painting. Well, for the most part, all I really did now was define this shape more. Or rather, where this shape meets with these clouds kind of fading off a little bit. Continuing band under here. One thing I did not want to do was explain it too thoroughly, because that I would like to leave a little bit up to interpretation. You know, that's part of the joy of looking at something in an impressionistic painting. Or I suppose, that brings me to another thing actually. There was a question recently. Well, here, let me just back the camera up a moment so you can see the painting a little more clearly. Okay, let's see, how are we doing here? Okay, I think that's about right. I had a question a little while ago from Spaffon1 possibly? I'm not sure. One of my subscribers. One of you guys out there. Wondering sort of what category my type of paintings fall under. And I guess, you know, I used to be more impressionistic, even bordering on expressionistic. Lately, I guess you could more accurately call it post-impressionism. Partly because I do almost all of my work in my studio. Also, partly because I am usually quite concerned about the effect of light on the objects in my paintings. Not just the objects, but the sky. You know, the general sense of light and what light's doing within the painting. Beyond that, I'm not sure. You know, I still would say I'm an impressionist because I'm just making an impression of reality. You know, you know, when I used to work more with the knife and sort of more, maybe I just had more energy when I was younger, but I would tend to call it more expressionism then, because there was just more flair to it. I was bolder often, and some of the impressions of the things I was painting would be so hyperbolic in their representation on canvas, and there would be maybe more emotion shown in the painting. Maybe then it was a little, you know, leaning in that direction. Anyway, I have long ago forgotten about all the different classifications because they get very specific about things. To me, Impressionism is a pretty wide, it's a pretty broad umbrella, covers a lot of territory. Whereas the difference between Impressionism and Post-Impressionism, it doesn't affect me, you know. I'm not an artsy person at all. There are a lot of very highly educated people out there who spent their careers studying the minute differences, subtle differences, and the individual artists, individual styles. I have never really gone through that to any great degree. I produce artwork, but I'm not an artsy guy. You probably know that by now. Anyway, I just thought I'd mention that. I hope that answers the question. I can talk a little bit about the artists or the artwork that has influenced me. I think we'll do that maybe in the next video. Okay, talk to you soon. Once again, I forgot to do a bit of a zoom in. See this little filament here? I don't know, there might be some of you out there screaming at your computer screen saying, "Get rid of that!" I kind of like it. It's an oddity. It's a point of interest. It's a filament. It's not very translucent for a filament, but I like the shape. So you can see, I think from this angle more, how I've handled the sky. Kind of softened everything. Adding raw umber towards the upper right. Mixtures of cobalt blue and ultramarine blue. So I think it has, in general, had the effect of taking attention away from the sky, maybe maturing the sky a little bit, and helping the painting, the actual subject matter, stand on its own. In general, I've softened the whole sky, in a word. Or what is that? Soften the sky, that's 3 words. And let's go down to these rocks. I'll just give you a close-up of them. See the ones on the lower right? Amongst this dark group I've just made fairly nondescript. Tone down that little bit of grass that's drooping down, resting on the rock. It was catching too much light earlier, and I had a couple of little niggling details I wanted to get rid of, so that's done. I think I've described colors as I've gone along pretty well, so I won't get into that right now. Well, I won't get into that anymore on this painting unless you have a specific request about an area on it. Okay, that is it. I'm pretty happy with that. It's going upstairs, gonna live with it. I don't think I will be able to find much that I need to change anymore.